Hey everybody, I'm John Elliott Churchville, and today's Hump Day Power Thought is lead by connecting with people. My purpose here today is to raise your awareness of leadership as a teachable skill and to add value to you by giving you some very practical information that you can start using today. I also want to convince you of two things if you're not already convinced. First, that we are all leaders in one way or another. And second, that leadership itself comes down to one and only one thing: influence. Leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. And influence depends on your ability to connect with people. In prehistoric times, when humans first began to roam the earth, I was 23 years old, and having spent 3 years working on voter registration in Southwest Georgia and teaching literacy in the Mississippi Delta, I returned to my native Philadelphia and began working with teenage gangs. I was fresh from my success in negotiating a peace treaty between two rival gangs in Americus Georgia, and I felt very confident that I'd be able to make a difference in Philadelphia, which had its own gang problems, just as I had in Americus. As I went from one Philadelphia gang to the other and explained to them how they could make history and improve their communities by ending the violence they were engaged in, they both responded by agreeing to meet at a neutral spot, the Church of the Advocate in North Philadelphia, so they could work out the final details of a ceasefire agreement. Now, while working separately with each gang leader, I believed that I had built great rapport with James, the leader of gang number 1. I would spend time with James, encouraging him to consider getting an education and changing his life. James always listened to me respectfully as I spoke to him and shared my positive perspective about his future potential. I didn't feel the same way about Edward, the leader of gang number 2. He was guarded, seemed suspicious of my intentions, and I got the clear sense that he didn't trust me at all. So when the two gangs finally got to the negotiating table, to my complete surprise, Edward, the leader of gang number 2, whom I doubted would buy into the peace deal, stated that he was fully prepared to sign the peace accord immediately. But to my utter chagrin, James, the leader of gang number 1, whom I had taken under my wing, oh boy, he balked. And when he balked, mayhem ensued, and the two gangs started throwing chairs at each other in the Church of the Advocate. When I was finally able to restore order, and Edward and his lieutenants had left the church, I asked James why he refused to sign the peace deal. James looked me squarely in my eyes and said, "John, if I stopped gang warring, I'd have no reason to live. Gang warring is my life." Well, I was dumbfounded. For the first time, I realized that I had never talked with James, only to and at him. I was too busy trying to sell him the goods of wanting him to stop gang warring. But my change of mind came too late. The next day, James was dead, murdered, execution style, 2 bullets to the back of his head. From that day to this, I've never forgotten my failure to connect with James. There is still the lingering thought in the back of my head all these years later that if I had just taken the time to connect with James rather than to talk at him, maybe, just maybe, there might have been a different result. My failure to connect with James was probably the invisible catalyst that impelled me to found and headmaster for 14 years the Freedom Library Day School, a private school for African American kids in North Philadelphia. And perhaps it was that same psychological trigger years later that propelled me to become a lawyer and begin my legal career as a criminal defense attorney. Be that as it may, there is only one thing that stands between you and greater success in your personal and professional life. It isn't knowledge, experience, talent, or even wisdom. It's your ability to connect with people. I'm John Elliott Churchville, certified speaker, teacher, trainer, DISC behavioral analysis consultant, and coach with the John Maxwell team.